This is The Chart, Zimbabwe's premier sports debate podcast. We say what we want, how we want. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, and The Chart.
Hello and welcome to The Chat. This is your premier weekly sports podcast where we say what we want and how we want to say it. Today I have the privilege of speaking to Jason Maritz, the Zimbabwe Rugby 15s team manager. The 15s are known as the Sables. So Jason recently came on board and he had a stellar job helping the team through their inaugural SuperSport Challenge campaign. Although the team did not manage to win any game, but in terms of organization, everything was on point. And he is the team manager. He is the man who made sure that everything is possible. Now Zimbabwe is looking ahead to the 2023 World Cup. What are the plans in place? What are the strategies that they're going to implement? These are some of the questions that Jason is going to answer. Due to the COVID-19 crisis that has hit the world, we could not manage to have a sit down with him, but rather we connected via Zoom. And here now we speak to the man himself, Jason Maritz.
Good morning, Jason. How's Cape Town this beautiful morning?
Yeah, morning, Larry. Can't complain. Bright and sunny, obviously still in lockdown this side, but it is what it is. So, look, from a social distancing point of view, it hasn't been too much of a problem. I've been keeping busy with the kids at home and still trying to run my business as best as possible. And try to put some exercise in as well, kind of just makeshift plans. So can't complain, keeping positive and hoping that we can all get through this on the other side better off. I don't know if we'll get back to as we used to call normal. Obviously there's a situation where we have to obviously come back in a gradual process, I think. And I think obviously the sporting bodies in the background have been planning some sort of new structure. I know SA Rugby has been in comms and busy with something in the background. So, a difficult one. I hope so. I hope we can get back to a rugby season that's forthcoming, but I'm unsure at this stage.
Definitely no one is sure at this stage. Now let's get back to Zimbabwe. How was it for you coming back to Zimbabwe and taking a role within Zimbabwean rugby after having been away for quite some time?
It's been, firstly, obviously the experience has been brilliant. I mean, obviously I last played for Zimbabwe when I was under 19, so a young Sable, and we managed to go to a World Cup in Durban and we managed to do relatively well. And obviously that was a great moment in my rugby career. Obviously disappeared into the wilderness a little bit and focused on business and played a lot of cricket in the Western Cape. But obviously the passion for rugby has still always been there. And then when I got the opportunity to potentially come on board as a manager, obviously with my experience with running businesses and managing people and everything else, it kind of was a no-brainer for me. The passion for Zimbabwe is still there. Green Zimbabwean passport with me. And to give back to our country in a way that I could maybe just help our rugby team become more successful was a big drive for me. So it was very the opportunity presented itself. The coaches were welcoming. Dorsey mapped out his plan, and it was easy to buy in when somebody's so passionate about Zimbabwe rugby. So it's been brilliant, and I'm hoping that we have a couple more years in us, and obviously we get to the pinnacle being the World Cup.
Definitely, we'll get to talk a little bit later on about the 2023 World Cup. Many people had never heard about Jason, barring from those who follow junior rugby in Zimbabwe, and they heard that there was a guy in Cape Town, Jason, will be the team manager. And from what we understand, you were even more than a manager. You did a great job last year. Just tell us more about the role that you did.
I think when you have a small management team or coaching team, especially like in the SuperSport Challenge last year, there was Dorsey, Tonderai, and myself, and we had to put together a squad / obviously a tour within 2 weeks. So what happens a lot is that you end up dovetailing between each other. Tondies will step in and help me, and I help Dorsey, as well as obviously helping with players. So that's what's very important when it comes to our environment, is that everybody's on the same page and working as a team. So yes, I suppose I'm a team manager, but we're all a bit of a jack of all trades. We try and help cover each other's bases. So with my experience of running in a corporate business, running my own businesses, I've managed to learn a hell of a lot in regards to logistics, in terms of obviously planning, in terms of obviously player management or people management, as well as obviously negotiations and everything else. So, you really have to just take what you've learned in your world, being the business world in my sense, and incorporate that into the rugby. I feel rugby, although it's not recognized as a professional sport in Zimbabwe, we still need to treat it as a professional sport. And I've tried to bring in that professional side, which is great. I mean, it's obviously there's so much more to be done and so much more to be learnt. We don't profess to know everything, but we've definitely tried to turn the ship in the right direction. And there's been buy-in from all sides, which has been brilliant.
How were those 7 weeks with the boys in Cape Town?
Nothing short of brilliant. I know that the results maybe don't speak what our supporters want them to say, but we need to also put things into perspective. We were given, a 2 weeks notice to put a squad together. We were given great funding by supporters and obviously our sponsors, Titan Law, Zertu, Portnix. They came on board and they funded the whole tournament, which was absolutely brilliant. And I think the one thing that all the players have said, and you can ask from the reporters that came there, was that it was set up as a professional setup. There was nothing short that the players could say they never had. We had supplements, we had dietitians, we had meal plans, we had obviously training facilities, we had gym facilities, we had everything. We had physios basically 24/7. We had a massage therapist that came on board that supported the players throughout the whole tournament. So from a professional point of view, it was nothing short of brilliant. And that's what we want to strive for as Zimbabwe Rugby. We really want to put on a showcase for our, not to show people, but for our players to understand that we're investing, we're trying to move forward, we're trying to make our team and our rugby in Zimbabwe professional. And given the right resources, that's exactly what we can do. And I think the results weren't bad, guys. I mean, I know the Cheetahs game probably was our worst game, but they loaded their team with Super Rugby players. And, it's difficult to have a semi-professional team that you've put together 2-3 weeks before a game like the Sharks and the Cheetahs in Western Province. But, we weren't annihilated. We weren't given a hiding. We weren't embarrassed. We've come off that field with heads held high. And I think this year would have been great because we had a stronger squad lined up this year. We've managed to source more players, and we really felt we could target 2 or 3 games this year, knowing that we would have had 3 or 4 weeks prep before our first game.
Let's talk about them now. I understand you had an attachment at the Hurricanes in New Zealand this year. What did you learn and what were your experiences?
Yeah, that was really... it was a good eye-opening experience for myself and Dorsey. I mean, we're obviously very grateful for the opportunity. Ben Castle, the GM of Hurricanes, invited us over, and we managed to spend basically just over a week with them, but learning everything that we could learn from them. And the good news from that is that Coach Dorsey came out of that week kind of very happy with the way he's coaching and the way his patterns and where he's thinking at as a coach, which is nice to validate your methods with a Super Rugby team that's doing very similar structures to what he was trying to bring into Zimbabwe Rugby. So he's left that tour very confident in his abilities and his structures. Obviously, they shared a lot with us. The coaches were very open and honest about how they go about things. They've shared us scrumming footage. We've got footage, line-out footage. We've got, patterns. We've got plays that they work with and something that we can work on. So very accommodating, and the players were also brilliant. They probably have a lot of people that come in and come out of their kind of wider kind of squad, but they were quite open, which was awesome as well. And the one thing we probably learned, there's two things we learned, but the one kind of aspect that really stood out was the use of technology. I mean, they would run a practice with drones and cameramen filming literally every session, and especially when it came down to scrums and lineouts, they would literally film a lineout or a scrum and then go straight to the video footage after one scrum and kind of confirm if they were doing their binds or their hits properly, and that type of immediate feedback for a player is massive, because they can correct something in 5 minutes, which sometimes could take them weeks to correct. So, the fact that they use technology and tracking systems was brilliant. I mean, obviously that's what we would love to have. All of that comes at a hefty price, which is obviously, a talking point as always when it comes to running a semi-professional setup. Sponsors becomes a bit of a subject to talk about. But besides that, we also realize that you don't need everything the best of the best as well. Their facilities were very humble, to say the least. They were the first to admit it. It was nothing wow or nothing special, but they treated everything and everybody with respect. And especially when they went onto their rugby park, you could see that there was focus, execution, just hunger to wear the Hurricanes jersey, which is something to be proud of, because I suppose there's a lot of history and tradition there, which was awesome to see as well.
Wonderful. You talked a lot about professionalism. Now, looking at Zimbabwean situation, we are semi-professionals. As a manager, how do you keep the players motivated, and how do you make sure that the players choose a country over a club?
Yeah, that is a tough question in terms of the choosing part. But I mean, to start with motivation, I can speak frankly that I don't believe any player needs to be motivated to play for Zimbabwe or wear itself, that we are a proud nation and we are proud people. And, the Sables jersey has massive history behind it. So to motivate a player to wear our jersey is not the issue. And, that's been proven with a lot of players throughout the years that have stood up and been counted. But I suppose the trick question or the difficult issue that we have to deal with as a tier 2 nation is the fact that we have to compete against clubs who are paying our players on a professional level. So they're being paid as a professional level, but yet we're asking them to come and represent their country on a semi-professional level. And we can't compete, unfortunately, with the budgets that are being thrown at some of our players. So, when a player has to look after their family and they're providing bread and butter, and paying the bills through their club, it becomes a bit of a power struggle between the club's demands of a player and his passion and his heart to represent our country. So yeah, that's been a struggle. I mean, I think it's definitely not a player's fault. One needs to be level-headed when we negotiate these type of situations. And if we're on a good wicket and if we communicate well with these clubs and we obviously establish when we need a player and when the player can go back and the club can plan, I think we can always find that common ground. But yeah, it's such a difficult fine balance when it comes to tier 2 nations and clubs. You also don't want a situation where a player is first or second choice, someone like someone like Farai, maybe Mudariki, who's trying to break into the Worcester squad. Although he wants to come and play and he wants to make himself available, if he misses half a season with the Worcester Warriors and he goes back after playing with us, he's maybe now 4th or 5th in the pecking order, and he's lost his momentum to maybe break into the first team squad. So we understand these things, and we obviously, it's such a fine balance and difficult situation to handle. But to get a player motivated to play for us has never been a problem, I don't think. And it's a testament to the nation and our people. We're just very, very proud people, and we want to represent our country to the best of our abilities.
Great stuff. And after the tour of Hurricanes, I understand you also had to sit down with the coaches to discuss strategies and the brand of rugby. What do you think best suits Zimbabwean players in terms of the system?
Yeah, we actually had in Durban last year, late last year, with all the coaches and the excos and all the powers that be. And we had a good strategy going into this year in terms of planning and procedures of what we needed to do. I mean, I obviously don't want to speak on behalf of the coaches because that's their kind of realm and where they work. But I know working closely with Dorsey and Tondies and Liam and Danny, they speak in particular of Dorsey, he's just a very passionate person. And I know we want to play go forward rugby. We don't want to play defensive rugby. We have the strength in the forwards to dominate. We've got the skill, second to none in the back line, to spread the ball and use our pace out wide. So, I know Dorsey and them want to play go forward rugby, dominant rugby, and obviously just have that flair about us. As Zimbabweans, we do have that flair, and we can bring it, if we just trust in our own abilities and we believe in ourselves, because that's a big thing for Zimbabweans at the moment, is this belief. We've been treated indifferently of late as a people. And, when we travel the world, people kind of look at us as a second-class citizen, as a second-rate citizen. So that's a difficult pill to swallow, because we as Zimbabweans are very a proud nation, as I've mentioned before, and we need to believe in our own selves and our own abilities as rugby players, as a people, especially even on business skills or anything. We're very clever people, and our education system has been very good for a very long time. So, we need to just have that belief, and I think if we have belief, we can then execute, because we believe we can do something, which means then you can do something. So a mindset, a positive mindset. I know we chase quite hard. We want to buy into our culture as a team and as a country. We want our own identity, and that identity needs to be playing positive rugby as a positive kind of force in rugby. That's definitely something I know the coaches are pushing hard for.
Wonderful. Positive rugby. That's what we want. And Jason, in terms of rugby and the sport in general, the number 23, age 23, is more like a magical marker. That's where reality starts to sink in for most players, that they're not going to make it, probably if they've chosen to play for other countries. And now, what's your plan with regards to that? For a lot of players who are based outside of Zimbabwe, outside of South Africa, the likes of Kerry Sengel, in Ireland, the likes of Snyder, who's now in Italy, Tim Chenna's in the States. What are your plans to try and incorporate those players?
I mean, the door is obviously open for every and any Zimbabwean wanting to represent our country. I think we need to understand that, once a player leaves school, basically high school, we don't have that infrastructure to keep a player around. So they obviously bombshell and go all around the world, wherever they need to go, and they want to take their rugby career forward, as well as their varsity education. But, the one thing that Dorsey has made clear, and as coaches have made clear, is that they want to select the best possible 23 that we have available. Because if we have the best possible 23 players on the field, we give ourselves a chance. And that doesn't have to be 23 players overseas. That doesn't have to be 23 players at home. We just need the best possible 23. One needs to then factor in, though, the financial constraints. Sometimes, we can't afford to play, fly players 3-4 times around the world to come and play one game. So, those things sometimes factor into, your squad selection and your decision making. And then, of course, you look at these players like Eli Snyman and them in Italy, and we've got Robertson, who's playing in America. He plays in the Mitre Cup in New Zealand as well. There's Manga, who's also a captain there at Old Glory with Tendai, and he's also qualifies to be playing for us. And we've spoken to these guys, but the problem is their commitment to their clubs and their contracts. So we have to find that window when they're available to us, and hope that window / our fixtures kind of work so they can come and represent us. It's not a question of do they want to, it's a question of can they. So to answer your question, I mean, the door's open. The door's always has been open. We've grown. I in particular have worked on a database over the last couple of months where I've grown this database to players at about 120 names with all their stats as well as contact details. I've also created a WhatsApp group, a Zimbabwean rugby player pool group, where all our communication goes on to. There's a wider Sables squad group that has been created as well from last year, as well as obviously the Super Sport Challenge this year. So we're trying to communicate that information across. Danny Hondo's been working on their strength and conditioning, sending programs, monitoring their progress. So, in the background, we've been working on a lot of things to try and set everything up for the season that was meant to go ahead. But the door's never closed. And, we don't have scouts out there. So we need people to come to us and say, hey, did you know about this guy? Do you know about that guy? And that becomes difficult because it's word of mouth because nobody's in America watching these guys play, or nobody's in New Zealand. We had a good chat with Brandon, who plays for the Chiefs, or their Mitre Cup team, the Chiefs there. And we managed to meet him after one of the games versus the Hurricanes, and we sat down and had a good chat with him. And, after chatting with him, he's bought into our vision, he's bought into our plans, and he wants to represent his country. But nobody ever reached out to him, and he never knew how to contact us. So it was almost like a stalemate. So yeah, we definitely need to work on how we can access more players and find more players, and grow our database. But at least we've started on that, and it's obviously a work in progress as we build up for the next coming 2 years.
Yes, building up for the next coming 2 years is the plan. 2023 is the World Cup. So what are the plans that we've put in place to make sure that Zimbabwe is ready for that World Cup cycle?
The planning already started last year when we took part in the SuperSport Challenge. The structures are already there, the patterns, the way the coaches want to play. We've identified certain players, but as I mentioned already, the door's never closed. And then it's about, obviously, this season. This season was meant to be a crucial season for us, with obviously a wider squad selected, a stronger squad selected, that we feel going into the SuperSport Challenge would have been a good 7-8 weeks build up to the African Cup. That's crucial game time. As Zimbabweans, we don't get a lot of fixtures. We don't, you probably play a couple of test matches here and there. Last year we had a decent amount, but you don't get a lot of games before those fixtures. And with the SuperSport Challenge, we could have had 6-7 games this year to build up to our first game against Tunisia. That's 7 games against high-quality opponents before we played Tunisia. That would have been incredible for us. And knowing that straight after that, we would have had possibly Namibia in the semi-final. So, those are the games we want to play to gauge ourselves and see where we are, and then see the weak points and where we need to develop. So I don't know what the season is still going to bring us. I hope we still have a season. That being said, though, we've got our players on programs. We've got our players. The coaches have sent out all line-out information, all our structures information. The coaches are talking to players consistently. So everybody's there, but it's kind of just waiting in limbo, because I don't think anybody saw this virus coming, which has obviously messed up a lot of plans. But we'll be ready regardless of whether we have a season now or a season next year. We know what's at stake. We know what's on the line. We do feel that this is a massive, massive opportunity for us to qualify. We obviously know who we're up against and who we need to challenge for that spot. So we're not obviously taking anything for granted. I suppose the only weakness we have right now, if I'm brutally honest, is that we would need a couple more sponsors to come on board, to give us more camps, to give us more time, to give us games against opposition that's going to test our abilities. And without sponsors, obviously, all of this becomes a very, very difficult task for the ZRU and for us to pull off.
Yes, just talking of the SuperSport Challenge, personally, I felt that it was a success for Zimbabwe. Yes, the results didn't come our way, but in terms of what you wanted to do, in terms of the bigger picture, I felt that the Victoria Cup was a result of what we put in the SuperSport Challenge. Now, looking at this year, we might not have the SuperSport Challenge due to this virus. How disappointed are you, and how much of a distraction will it be to your plans for the next 3 years?
Look, it is a distraction. It is something that we never saw coming, and it is unfortunate. The word on the streets is there's provisionally options for the SuperSport Challenge to maybe still happen late August, September. Nothing's obviously confirmed. Nothing is in stone. I know that SA Rugby is working on something on their side. Let's see what happens there. If it doesn't happen, I think at the end of the day, guys, we need to make sure we have our squad together and we need to play games. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. We also don't know where the Africa Cup is this year. My assumption is that it has to happen because it's part of a seeding kind of placement for next year, depending on where you finish this year. So my thoughts are that is going to happen, which means we need to be prepared. We might not have 7-8 games in the SuperSport Challenge for the African Cup, but we definitely need 2, 3, 4 weeks before we play Tunisia then to be prepared and have our best players available. Now with obviously maybe the movement of the season and the season maybe later in the year, maybe we'll have more players available because now other tournaments might have been cancelled and the likes of the players playing in ITM Cup and maybe overseas and everything else might now be able to make themselves available. So that would be brilliant. So through all of this negative and difficult times, there's always a silver lining that we can look for. So, that's something that we're hoping for. And I suppose really at the end of the day, we can only comment on what the season can bring us when we know what is actually happening. And let's just hope that next year's season is not affected. I'm sure it won't be, but there's obviously, I suppose, just a lot of uncertainty right now.
Definitely a lot of what ifs. But maybe on that last what if, what were the targets for this year in terms of the Supersport Challenge?
The target was quite simple. I think we definitely wanted to win 2 or 3 of those games. I think we definitely came close against SWE Eagles last year. We should have won that game. Border is a game that we can definitely target and win. And then it was a likes of just trying to chase an upset, maybe against someone like the Sharks or Province or Boland was something that we wanted to chase, because we've got nothing to lose when we play Western Province and Cheetahs and Sharks, but we've got everything to gain. And what we can gain from those type of games is our confidence and our belief. If we stick to our patterns and we take those teams close or maybe get one over the line, what that does is mentally that's massive for our squad. So that was definitely a target. And then, of course, it was about unearthing more talent, and giving some guys more opportunity, So we know what we looked at last year. We know the player pool we played with. The coaches went ahead and selected a few new faces for the Supersport Challenge, a few guys that we haven't seen bringing into our program. So that would have been very interesting to see how those players performed and would they put their hands up for national duty late in the year. So those were the targets for Supersport Challenge. Of course, the target for Gold Cup is nothing short than winning it. I mean, we have to focus on winning it. We won the Victoria Cup last year. We were seeded above Kenya in the world rankings for a period of time until they lost. We lost to them in Kenya. The only team we haven't played then last year, and we would have played this year, is Namibia. So we would have targeted that game against Namibia as a massive game for us and try and win the Gold Cup. If we're seeded 1 or 2 when it comes to seeding next year for World Cup qualifiers, I mean, that's where you want to be. You will end up playing more games at home than and less away. So we could then get our crowd behind us and get our supporters rallying us and backing us. So those are the targets. And if the tournament still happens, those will still be the targets. We cannot settle for second best as Zimbabwe Rugby. We need to be striving for higher accolades and better results off the field. And if we can take care of everything on the field. So if we can take care of everything off the field, the players and the coaches can focus on their job at hand, and that's bringing the results.
I definitely still hope that the results will come, and I certainly hope that all your plans will come into fruition. So now, Jason, away from the team, just to you as an individual, just looking at the poster that you have today, being the Sables manager, it's one post that has got a lot of history behind it, and most managers have just left promptly. Do we have Jason for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, no, I can't obviously, unfortunately, comment about other managers and their environments. It's difficult to say why somebody left or why they came. So I'm going to avoid that topic. But in terms of me and what I'm trying to achieve, as long as we're on the right track and I can commit my time, because it's not even about financial commitments, it's more my time. Obviously with my businesses here in the Western Cape, I need to obviously find that fine balance. But if I've got that balance and I can focus on Zimbabwe Rugby, then I'm there until I think we've given our contracts extended till end of 2023, I think. So I'm around as long as Dorsey and them are around and we're moving forward. I'm around. I kind of want to get us to a place where we've left Zimbabwe Rugby better off than when we took it. And if I can play a small role in that, being a water boy or being a manager or doing anything, I really don't care what position I hold. I just want to contribute that little bit because that's my way of giving back. I unfortunately can't get on the field anymore. As much as I would love to be on the field and playing, there's a few boys still playing that I grew up playing, schoolboy with. So that's also itching a bit. But if I can't play on the field, then there's nothing more proud for me to do than try and give off the field and give these players the best they can get. So, I'm going to be committed as long as I possibly can. And let's hope that commitment is 2023 France. I mean, that would be a dream for me. I know it's a dream for all the players, and I know it's a dream for Coach Dorsey. I mean, he was last at a World Cup, obviously, for us at 91, and he speaks about those moments very fondly and very passionately. So I think there's nothing more than to say right now in terms of our commitment. We're in there until France 2023, and then let's see what happens after that. But long road ahead though, so we got to just keep our head down and stay focused.
Prior to taking this job, you're based in Western Cape. Peter de Villiers is based in Western Cape. But did you have a chance to speak to him?
No, I didn't. I mean, I dealt with Peter a little bit when he was coach. I was a consultant here in the Western Cape for him, just looking for a few players and keeping in touch with the players, obviously for him that he might want to select. When I took the post, I never spoke to him. I actually never really spoke to anybody. The only person I spoke to was Dawson. We had a good chat about what he wants as his future and what he was planning, and I bought into that. I'm not one to read very much into what's happened in the past and who said, she said, whatever happened. I don't give that much time, because the past is the past and we can't really change that. What we can change was our future. And what we can change was bringing Zimbabwe back where Zimbabwe belongs on the rugby map. And that's what I bought into. So, no, I haven't had any dealings with Peter. Obviously, I personally don't have any ill feelings or anything towards him. I don't really know him that well to have ill feelings towards anyone. And, I just wanted to do what I can do, which was my capacity as becoming manager.
Jason, thank you so much for your time. Before I let you go, any last words to the Zimbabwe rugby community, especially in these dark moments?
Yeah, so I think it's quite simple. I think we need to just buy into what our president in Zimbabwe is saying, and we need to conform to the restrictions. I think it's for our best interests. In South Africa, it's the same. We need to just buy into this. It's our health that comes first at the end of the day, health and families. And if we can just buy our time now and this curve can calm down, we can get back out there and trade. I know it's difficult. I mean, tough times in Zimbabwe at the moment as well. And I know people are having to choose between this virus and feeding their families. And that's never easy. But I ask for common sense, and I ask for people to be cautious and obviously keep your distance, look after your families, and let's get out of this. We as Zimbabweans have thick skins, and we've managed to come out of a lot of issues in the past, and this is nothing new to us. So we can definitely be successful and thrive after this. And then to the rugby community, we just ask that everybody that knows anybody and can talk to someone, just help back us. We have the passion. The board of the ZRU, our presidents, Aaron, the vice presidents, they are tirelessly trying. I know they take a lot of flack. They catch a lot of media heat, but at the end of the day, I don't think people really know what's being put in the background. And they are working tirelessly to try and bring Zimbabwe's rugby back on the map. I know there's club rugby talks, and there's a lot of sponsors that have come forward on the club rugby scene. And we just ask that people be patient with us, but also, if they're willing to talk the talk, then they must walk the walk, and we need them to back us and support us. Or if they know of sponsors, to come on board and say, you know what, we see what you guys are doing, and we're going to support you, because, as I've said rightfully so in the beginning, our players' passion, our coaches' passion, the will to be successful is not questioned. That cannot be questioned. I think the results of winning Victoria Cup last year with very minimal support was evident. But what we can do is, if we have the support of our nation, and have the support of sponsors, and that financial backing, where we can take this is not really known, because I just think we've never reached those heights where we know where we can go. So, we've got 2 years, this year and next year, to prove that, to try and make the 2023 World Cup. And if we get the right support behind us and the right support structures, and our people come and watch our games, the better it's going to be for all of us. So we thank the supporters so far, and we ask that you hang in there for us. We're definitely not going to disappoint. I speak on behalf of Hilton and Brandon and all of our players. There's still a hunger, and if only you guys could see their training videos and everything else in the background. These boys are working tirelessly at home with hardly anything, some of them, but they're putting in a shift because they don't want to miss out on opportunities going forward. So thanks for everybody, and thanks for the interview. I wish you guys well on your new platform.
Thank you so much, Jason. So there you have it, Zimbabwe. This has been the chat, and for our first chat, we invited Jason Maritz, who happens to be the Sables team manager, just to tell us about the experiences of last year, and also what we have in line in terms of the future, being the big picture being the 2023 World Cup that is happening in France. And he also narrated to us their plans for that World Cup, and also how they've kept in touch with some of the players, even those that haven't represented Zimbabwe before, but they're still in touch with them. And they certainly hope that everything will come into fruition and Zimbabwe can be that power so that we've always imagined. Remember, we were at our World Cup in 1987, and one Richard Simba left some lasting legacies. Then 1991, once again, the likes of Brendan Dawson, the current coach, was also at the World Cup that was in Ireland. So we hope that the next World Cup, Zimbabwe is going to be there. This has been the chat. Always remember to send up the praises, and the blessings will surely come down, raining upon you.
This is The Chart, Zimbabwe's premier sports debate podcast. We say what we want, how we want. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, and The Chart.